Cypress Development Corp's flagship lithium project is located just east of Albemarle's Silver Peak mine in the heart of Clayton Valley, Nevada. A 12-hole exploration drill program for lithium-enriched claystone on Cypress's 100% controlled properties is now underway. Cypress Development Corp trades on the TSX Venture Exchange, symbol CYP, the Pink CYDVF, and on Frankfurt C1Z1. For more information, please visit our website, cypressdevelopmentcorp.com.
You're listening to HowStreet.com radio, available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. Welcome to HowStreet.com radio, the online source for market opinions. Here is Jim Goddard.
My guest is home ownership consultant Ross Kay from the wealthyhomeowner.ca. Welcome back to the show, Ross, and best of the season.
Same to you, Jim.
Ross, a headline that just came in about Hathaway Berkshire, that's Warren Buffett, had invested a lot into home capital to save the embattled company, but it looks like he did more than just a favor.
Yeah, I think if your listeners go back to the Howe Street archives there and they look over the last couple of years, they'll see that we've mentioned Mr. Buffett's name a couple of times. And I think if people have followed me, they'll find out that I'm a little bit contrarian to all of the home capital group discussions that have been ongoing over the last couple of years. The reason, of course, that I'm contrarian is because I know the home capital group, although there may have been a somewhat small percentage of their mortgages that were the due diligence normally required to post a mortgage may not have taken place, i.e., they may not have checked the mortgagor's income tax forms to make sure they were making the earnings that they were making, or they may not have got an updated appraisal on the property before they lent the money. That still was not enough of a concern to cause a problem with the overall mortgage book at Home Capital Group. Well, of course, Mr. Buffett, he looked into their mortgage book, obviously. Somebody must have helped him there. And, he found out that their mortgage book was not at risk. Of course, at that time, we have to remember the, short sellers had been attacking Home Capital Group. A little bit of, lag had happened between the regulator investigating claims with Home Capital Group than what normally should have taken place. The result was some panic selling on Home Capital Group, great drop in their stock price, and Mr. Buffett came in was to lend him some cash, which it turns out he's now made hundreds of millions of dollars on for a little over a year's work. And I think the one thing that this goes to show you, when people talk about panic in a market, they misunderstand mortgage books. They misunderstand how mortgage lenders work. They misunderstand fraud in a mortgage market. Is generally because the sheer size of a mortgage book, like the size of the mortgage book, it's so large. If you have one or two problems, it really doesn't matter. There has to be a massive problem in a mortgage book before there's any risk. Clearly, Mr. Buffett didn't believe that there was any problem with the Home Capital Group mortgage book when he had a look at it. Clearly, the pension funds who got involved didn't have any problem with it because they were willing to lend over another $1 billion. And we are now with Buffett extracting himself from Home Capital. The only reason he's doing that is because he didn't get a large enough share of Home Capital. When his option came available, the shareholders of Home Capital said, no, we don't want you to take our shares at the prices that you were able to buy them at. So he said, okay, I guess Home Capital is no longer going to serve the purpose that I had intended it to serve. Now, I'll tell you what I believe the intention of Home Capital or of Berkshire Hathaway was with Home Capital Group now that Mr. Buffett has made his announcement. Berkshire Hathaway has a real estate services company that they're trying to bring into Canada. Home Capital Group is going to have homeowners who need to sell their property. Those are leads for a mortgage brokerage company like Berkshire Hathaway owns. These mortgages have a higher percentage going to market than the regular bank lenders have. In other words, the people who go to Home Capital Group generally under some financial stress. As the housing market was going through rising prices, that risk was actually decreasing from the owners, but their ability to fund the mortgage wasn't getting any better. So what happens over time is, in these situations, if housing prices are still rising, is that the mortgagor, the family that holds the mortgage has the mortgage in the property, they look at it and they see now, our house is worth an extra $50,000. Okay, well, we're having a hard time with these mortgage payments. We now have enough money that we can sell the property. There's enough equity that we can sell it and we can get some cash out of it. So they go ahead and that's how they exit the market. It's one of the main reasons why these lenders of the home capital type really are very low risk. The mortgage listing syndicators generally are of low risk unless it's development syndicators like Fortress. If Fortress makes the wrong moves, the claims that they're making are not going to be able to be fulfilled. With Home Capital Group, that's not the case because they have single detached homes that these mortgages are registered against. So the long story short was, Mr. Buffett simply knew more about Home Capital's mortgage book and how house prices rise or fall in the housing market. And he was able to sit back and realize he had zero risk with this investment. Not only was it zero risk, but his return was probably going to be over 25%. And it looks like that's probably the case. I'm guessing that when all is said and done, I wouldn't be surprised if he's doubled his money on this investment.
Yeah, because I think he put in $100 million and got out $220.
There you go. And so from our perspective, Jim, that just made logical sense. It was a good investment for him. Their mortgage book was sound. Yes, there may have been a few mortgages that didn't go under the regular due diligence, but that was not bad. There was no need actually, Jim, for what happened to Home Capital to ever happen. Now, if what would happen to Home Capital happened today, that would be a different story. But when it happened to Home Capital, because housing prices were still going to be inflating over the next year, there was no risk there. If it happens today, that, my friend, is a different story.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
I'm Douglas Mason, CEO of Naturally Splendid, symbol NSP on the TSX Venture Exchange. Naturally Splendid is a biotechnology and consumer products company focused on the global cannabis and health markets. Naturally Splendid is expanding distribution in this rapidly growing market with products currently in Canada, the USA, South Korea, Germany, and Australia. To view our comprehensive company presentation and for more information, please visit our website at naturallysplendid.com.
I'm Kelly Jennings, CEO of Powerband Solutions. Powerband is a cloud-based provider of auction, inventory, and finance solutions that make buying, selling, and financing vehicles more efficient. Powerband Solutions trades on the TSX Venture Exchange symbol PBX and on the OTCQB symbol PWWBF and on Frankfurt symbol 1ZV. For more information, please visit us at powerbandsolutions.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, you constantly talk about housing analysts being fooled. You can name just about any one of the big companies, and their predictions never panned out. What do you think of what they said, and how did they work out?
Well, what I think is what they said for the first 50 weeks of 2018 has been proven to be false. And I think in the last 2 weeks, Jim, what they've been doing is they've been running for cover. They're now in cover-up mode. And this is the same pattern that is repeated year after year after year. And the Canadian press which is underfunded, in my opinion, especially on the housing file, never holds these people to account. It is wrong that the Canadian Real Estate Association gets to issue a report last year that claimed the housing market was going to increase this year, and then on each quarter issue an update to that housing forecast that downgraded it. And it was only a week ago, not even a week ago, where they released their latest housing market update, where it's almost going to align with what's going to take place 2 weeks from now. Remax, Royal LePage, Central One Credit Union out in BC, who just came out with their 2 to 3 year housing recession report. Royal Bank of Canada, TD Bank, all of these wealth management companies, every single one of their housing forecasts have been proven wrong. I encourage listeners to go back and look at the House Street archives and find out if our reports were wrong. The reason why these guys are wrong, Jim, is because what I've said over and over on this show, economists, academics, and realtors have no training in how a housing market works. They have a little bit of propaganda taught to them about sales, and then that's it. They can't even tell you what the metrics released, sales metrics, stats, released by the real estate boards actually say or mean. Now, I'm going to let your listeners in on a little secret today, and I'm going to come back early in the new year, because what I'm going to do is the wealthy homeowner members are all going to get access to the actual an actual MLS number that they're going to be able to go check. And then I'll come back in the show early in the new year, and I will give your listeners that number. Whether that listing is still there or the Canadian Real Estate Association removes it, I don't know. But the MLS number will be available, and our own members are already going to be able to go in and have checked it for a couple of weeks. With that said, I also know that there are housing analysts, realtors, members of the Canadian Real Estate Association, VPs at banks, credit unions, economic commentators all over Canada who have people in their organizations who are members of the wealthy homeowner. So they're going to have access to this. So maybe this listing gets removed, but I'm going to tell you the story. This is how little and how easy it is to fool a housing analyst. There is a secret listing on Realtor.ca today. There is a listing on Realtor.ca today that is messing up all of the housing metrics published by every organization in Canada today. From CMHC to your local real estate boards to the Bank of Canada, to everyone. Every single organization who comments on the housing market, their accuracy level is impacted by this one single listing. And it's a special listing, Jim. Because if you have the MLS number and you go check it, it's on Realtor.ca today. It has the following right in the listing. It tells everyone that it is a sleeping listing. It actually tells you it is a sleeping listing. It also tells you that it is fake. It actually uses the word fake in the listing. Yet you haven't heard a single person in Canada talk about this fact. This listing is on Realtor.ca right now. It has been there for a very long time. I will tell your listeners a hint for those who want to go out and try to find it. It's located in the province of Alberta. That's where they claim that it's located. It is impacting one real estate board in Alberta's housing numbers every single month. because this listing exists. This listing is aggregated into all of the housing market information coming from that real estate board for the trading area that it's operating at. That in turn is messing up Alberta's housing information for the provincial numbers, which in turn messes up the national housing information numbers. This is just one single listing. Now, what if this happened tens of thousands of times over the course of 2018? Which I will tell your listeners, this is what happened. It's the ignorance of the Canadian Real Estate Association itself, realtors, and everyone who's commenting on the housing market that they don't understand things like this are why they have not been able to figure out how easy it is to time a housing market. Your stats are stats. They aren't data. Selling stats are not housing market metrics. New listings to sales ratio has never and will never measure or predict what's going to happen with house prices. Your average selling price, your benchmark prices, your HPIs have nothing to do with the house's values themselves. Everything that you read about the housing market right now, last month and this month, will be skewed because of the one listing that I'm talking about, I'm referencing. One listing. Not only that, there are thousands of them that are in the marketplace today that are messing up the data. So when I hear all of these housing analysts talking about a housing market, and they don't explain to the public about this one single listing, let alone thousands, it means they're being fooled by the Canadian Real Estate Association stats. It means that when the public hears what you should be doing about the most expensive cost in your life, your family home, you shouldn't be listening to these people.
Ross, who planted this ghost listing or listings?
I can't tell you who planted it, Jim, because then that's going to kind of let the cat out of the bag. Because when you go check the listing, the person who planted it, their name's actually on the listing. And I'll tell you, it's worse than it being just an ignorant realtor. Now, remember, I'm using the word ignorant, meaning they don't understand what they're doing. This is actually someone up in the ranks of organized real estate. So this is not some innocent situation. Whether I do not believe the people in this one specific case know what they're doing is impacting stats, no more than I believe the thousands of listings that have been counted multiple times as sales in the province of Ontario this year. Those realtors, they know that their listing has been counted multiple times in the Canadian Real Estate Association numbers. I don't believe that those realtors know that. I believe they're ignorant to that fact. I'm not. I know where these things happen. When I show things like that to the team here, this specific listing, I've held this back for a very long time, Jim. I'm not going to pretend that I haven't. There are 3 people who knew about this prior to me talking to the team here, letting the team in on it, and now the wealthy homeowner members are going to know about it. And in a future date in the new year, we'll let your listeners in on the game. Were my wife, my mother, and my father. They were the only 3 people, other than myself, who knows that this listing had existed. And then they were the ones that I showed initially how it messes up real estate stats. When I showed my team, they couldn't believe it. And when I explained to them how this one listing was messing up the stats, it probably took me, I don't know, 2 hours, maybe 2 hours, maybe longer, to explain to them fully how one listing messes you up. You know, it's easy when I've got a group of listings that have been counted 2, 3, 4 times into provincial housing stats, where they have been reported across multiple real estate boards for the same area. The GTA and the Ottawa Valley area are two areas where this is really a big problem. It's really easy when I say how, well, in 2013, for sale by owners weren't being counted by real estate boards, but in 2014, they started to be counted. And then by 2017, they were really being counted by some real estate boards, which is how you got record-selling years. That's easy. That's easy to show. But if you don't have the information, if you don't have the facility to be able to read the information for what it is, you have to adjust all of your housing data before you can use it. That's the truth. You have to weed out the bad real estate data and leave a good, clean record. You can't comment on the housing market. That's why, from British Columbia to St. John's, real estate brokers, real estate salespeople, real estate brokerage owners are in every single province in Ontario have been told through provincial trading legislation that they are not supposed to be forecasting or talking about the housing market. Every single province. There is not of the 130,000 realtors in Canada, not one of them is authorized by a provincial government through trading legislation to talk about a housing market. They are authorized to talk about sale. What sold last week? Listing. What's listed on the MLS? That is the only thing that they're authorized legally to talk about. So all of these realtors who've been posting out here in the news, reports for the last 2 and 3 years, which in my opinion have misled the public one way or the other, have been breaking the law. Provincial regulators have been letting them get away with it. If you can find one who can give you the MLS number of the listing that I'm talking about today, then I'm going to tell you you should deal with that realtor. You can maybe start to trust what that realtor has to tell you. But I know that they don't have that MLS number. They don't know when I say that there's a sleeping fake listing that appears on Realtor.ca what I'm talking about. Your listeners in the new year, after all TWH members have already been able to have it and have a look at it, listeners in House Street are going to be given that MLS number. And even if the listing is removed, Jim, don't worry. We're grabbing screen captures right now so that when that listing number is posted, if somehow the Canadian Real Estate Association or someone else finds out that we have discovered this listing, we will still have a record of it for House Street listeners to see in the new year.
We'll have more with Ross Kay right after this.
Grand Portage Resources recently completed the 2018 drill program on its 100% controlled Herbert Gold Discovery property located in the prolific Juneau Belt in southeast Alaska. Drill results are expected through late 2018. Past drill results included numerous multi-ounce gold assays on multiple veins. Grand Portage trading symbols are GPG on the TSX Venture, GPTRF on the OTC QB, and GPB on Frankfurt. For more information, please visit our website, grandportage.com.
Don't miss out. Stay informed. Receive the HowStreet.com weekly recap with thought-provoking podcasts, radio, and articles delivered to your inbox. Sign up for the HowStreet.com weekly recap on our homepage at HowStreet.com.
Welcome back. We're speaking with Ross Kay. Ross, looking back over our broadcast from this year, almost every forecast and prediction you made came true. Can you think of your most insightful call for 2018?
Insightful call for 2018. Actually, what I would probably do, Jim, in all fairness, is I'd probably go back to 2017 and July of 2017, if I'm not mistaken. And because back in July 2017, I talked about the housing market moving into a correction on the national level. I think that the fact that here in Howe Street, I gave people that much of an advance warning that the market had moved into a correction out of just a simple contraction. And now here we are 18 months later, like a year and a half later. People can go back and check the old Howe Street archives, and that post is still, that podcast is still there. That was probably the most, the biggest free advice that I've ever given on, anywhere, and obviously, on Howe Street here. The lead time that we provided everyone. If they didn't want to listen to that forecast, if they didn't want to believe that it was true, then that's their choice, because it was here. It was live. It was backed by data, and it wasn't confusing at all. It was a black and white issue. We specifically said that the housing market had moved into a correction, and as it turned out, that was true. I think when we look back through 2018, certainly the fact that Buffett now is cashed out in our comment, I think that is probably pretty big news. I think the fact that the property taxes that, again, we warned the listeners about how young first-time condo buyers in Vancouver and Toronto were going to end up supplementing foreign owners who had purchased larger single detached homes as the housing market rolled over and the property assessment model began to get screwed up. I think that's pretty big. Certainly think the fact that we explained how CMHC's 200-page report was basically another ignorant publication about a housing market. It was clueless. And the fact that we can go through page after that report and with data destroy it kind of was big news. But I think it's the overall impression that we've tried to leave this year, Jim, and which you've been so helpful trying to get out. The fact that the public generally is misled about home ownership. They're misled about the housing market. And it's the overall infrastructure, the academics, the economists, the realtors, the brokerages, organized real estate, the banks, mortgage brokers, who continually inundate the Canadian public with myths, falsehoods, and misrepresentations about the housing market. Because those people who are commenting on it themselves are ignorant to how a housing market works, has led us to where we are today. We are over 2 years into the national housing market moving in a negative direction. Over 2 years. Not 3 months, as you read in other places. It's been over 2 years. This path is unwavering. You cannot change where a housing market is headed. You can't apply a tax. You can't change an interest rate. You can't change a policy and change the housing market over a short period of time. All turns in a housing market are recorded a year or 2 years before the public is ever aware of them. Organized real estate and banks, it is not in their best interest for the public to understand that a housing market is contracting or correcting. They need you to buy houses for their profits to be sustained, or even for their livelihood to continue. The listeners on House Street, I've heard some of your other guests are giving great advice. I just happen to be working in a field where 98% of Canadians' expenses are spent, and that is the home. That is living. That is their lifetimes. You know, we're extremely lucky to have House Street here. We're extremely lucky that we can go on for a half an hour, 40 minutes here, Jim. And we don't have to worry about sound bites or clickbait. There is an archive record of everything that is said here that people can go back and listen to. And of all things about 2018 that I am probably the most happiest about is that all of these interviews, all of these recordings are right here in the House Street archive. And everything that I say, you can go back and check and see if it came to be true. Anyone who's a naysayer, I hope that you understand. I would not come on this show and make a comment that is not going to be proven true in the future. What that means is, the only way I can say what I say is because where a housing market is today, it was recorded 2 years ago. What you're going to see in January, we were reading as we entered 2017. The housing market is like a train on a railroad track. The path is set. It will not divert. So, if anything at all that I would say about 2018, Jim, it was that what is recorded here in House Street is recorded here in perpetuity. Anybody who wants to be questioned or be giving advice about the single largest asset class in the world, i.e. real estate, should be able to withstand a critical review of the consumer or the listeners of House Street. Please go back, listen to the old shows over the holidays, find out whether or not what I have to say in 2019 is really worth your time. Because if you don't believe it is, you really shouldn't be listening in.
Ross, thank you so much for chatting with us.
Hey, and thanks for an awesome year, Jim. Thanks for an awesome year.
My guest has been Ross Kay from thewealthyhomeowner.ca. And by the way, Ross, have a great Christmas.
Same to you, sir.
If you need to contact him, you can go to his website, thewealthyhomeowner.ca. You're listening to HouseStreet.com radio. Find us on Twitter at House Street, our YouTube channel, Talk Digital Network. Questions for Ross or any of our other guests can be sent to info@HouseStreet.com. I'm Jim Goddard. Thanks for listening.
Comments made on HouseStreet.com radio are an expression of opinion only and should not be construed in any matter whatsoever as recommendations to buy or sell any financial instrument at any time. Available online at TalkDigitalNetwork.com. HouseStreet.com radio is a production of House Street Media Incorporated.